Well, welcome back to Elena on this podcast because I've had you on before talking about Taylor Swift. And welcome, Lindsay. Welcome. We're going to dive into a topic that you both are familiar with. Taylor Swift just put out her version of the Fearless album. It's literally called Fearless Taylor's Version. The original album came out in 2008 when Taylor was only 18. And this time around, she put it out with the original 19 tracks off the Platinum Edition and then 6 more songs that have been dubbed from the vault in her phrasing. And her main intention that she was saying with this album is that she wanted to create the same but better version of Fearless. Like, this was obviously a huge album for her. It really kind of changed the trajectory of her career. So there were some things that she really tried to focus on with producing this album as a better version, but still the same. So let me just ask the both of you first, Elena and Lindsay, when you listened to the album, did you feel like it was still true to the original, but it was also like done in this newer, better way that Taylor was trying to get at?
I think that it was definitely true to the original. I think obviously you can hear a huge difference in her maturity in her voice. But I read a few articles and interviews that she did that said that she wanted to make it really true to the original because that's what people liked. And if she had changed it, then it wouldn't be the same re-recording. Um, so I think that it's definitely true. You see the maturity in her voice change, and there's a couple different note changes, but it's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I really like that. I think we talked about it last time, like that we were so excited for this album, but we were kind of nervous because we were like, if she changes it too much, like it might kind of make fans upset because like it's just her first like major hit album and like everyone kind of grew up listening to that. So if like she changed it too much, people might, I don't know, be upset by that. So I'm glad that she kind of stuck to like the way it was. Like some songs I literally can't even tell like the difference. If I heard both of them, like I don't know if I would be able to tell. It just sounds just like it was when she was 18. So, but I do think it's like Lindsay said, like a more mature version of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was quoted saying in one article that she like went through each song line by line and listened to how she sang them and tried to focus on her inflections and then improve them on her singing now. So I think that's where that maturity factor comes in specifically, right? Like you hear it in her voice more because obviously she's much older now.
Mhm. And I think what's so cool is that she's the only one who knows what she like the message she was trying to put across, how she wanted the song to actually sound. So when she does do this like re-recording, she's able to make it the way that she wanted to without anyone else telling her what she has to do. And back to like what Elena was saying, how you want it to be the same as the original because like if it was too different you would still want to listen to the original Fearless and not Fearless Taylor's version sometimes.
Right.
So I think that that's what's so important for what Taylor wanted was that it had to be pretty similar because you don't want people still going back and listening to that original album because that's not the point of why she's doing her re-recordings.
Yeah, good point, Lindsay.
Yeah, and another reason too is she's doing this to get the masters back for the albums. You know, she lost
Hmm.
all those when she had that big fallout with Scooter Braun. So that's also like this
Right.
is also very personal for her on that side of things.
Hmm.
Yeah, and something else like that we kind of touched upon too, like the different concepts that she talks about. It's still like we said similar to the original, so it's kind of like she's going back to her adolescent phase and talking about romance, you know, heartbreaks, but there's also themes of empowerment and love and things like that. What are some of the songs that you two can think of that show some of those themes?
Um, I'm trying to think specifically of certain songs, but like you said, like the whole album, I feel like since it goes back to like her teenage years, like when she wrote those songs and when she sang them back then, it was kind of like her on her journey and like growing up and like her first kind of experiences with love. And then now that she can like sing it this many years later, I'm sure like those lyrics hold like a very similar but different meaning to her now that she's been through like so much more over the last few years. So I think that's kind of cool because I mean I've seen like videos of people being like, wow, I can't imagine being Taylor singing this after like all this stuff happened, like with relationships and everything she's been through, and it's just like really true. And like me and Jacqueline and Lindsay were actually talking about it, but how she said, like there's a whole new generation who might not have listened to the original album and are now listening to the re-release. And I think that's really cool because it's like everyone who listened to it, like us back then, are listening to it now because we appreciate it so much. And then she has like a whole new audience that she's kind of attracting with it, which is really cool. But specifically, my favorite songs on the Fearless album are probably Breathe, for Forever and Always. The slow version that she added is just amazing. The Best Day and Change. Those are probably my favorite.
Gotcha. How about you, Lindsay?
Fearless is my favorite on Fearless, but Change is also really good. I always loved the song Change, but then when I went to the Reputation tour, she re-sang, there was like one song that she would re-sing from previous albums, and she sang Change, and that like ever since then it's like completely like re-clicked, and now I love it even more than I did originally. And then I love Mr. Perfectly Fine, which is
Oh,
one of
it's
the
so
new
good.
songs from the Vault that is on Fearless Taylor's version. And I think that that song is so cool because I think we know who it's about, Joe Jonas, and um like actually knowing the relationship that they had and like the breakup, she didn't talk much about it other than the fact that he broke up with her on like a 15-minute phone call and didn't explain why. um but now like when you listen to Mr. Perfectly Fine, you kind of get answers that you didn't have, and I think that that's really cool because she's just still able to continue to tell her story from when she was how old, 15, and she's able to tell it now when she's like 30. um but yeah, those are my favorite songs probably on Fearless Taylor's version.
Yeah, the new version, exactly.
And I think like I think what's so like important, I read in an interview as well that she did, was that it's so important to say Taylor's version
Mhm.
because it is her version of Fearless. And when we like type in Fearless, you don't want to type in just plain Fearless. You want to type in Taylor's version so that it is like the new the
Mhm.
new album that everyone's listening to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that point. That's a really good, important distinction to make, Lindsay. And going back to talking about the different songs like Mr. Perfectly Fine that are from the vault, as she's stated, those ones are You All Over Me, Mr. Perfectly Fine, as we just talked about. We Were Happy, That's When, Don't You, and Bye Bye Baby. What did you guys think of those songs? Like, it's kind of really showing to know like she has so much unreleased material and now she's finally able to put it out. Like, was there something about those songs or like putting that out in general that kind of stood out to you?
I think that you can totally tell that that's like when she wrote it was back in 2008 or earlier. Like the lyrics are completely different, but even the melodies and like the way that the producers produced it, it just sounds like totally like a Fearless song. And I think that's what's so cool is we haven't heard a new Fearless song in so long. So when we hear like these new six songs from the Vault, it's like such a big deal to us.
Yeah, I do. Like Lindsay said, the new songs were really exciting to like listen to because I didn't even like know that she had all these other like songs that she had written and wanted to include on the album. But like she said, like people told her you should only have this many songs on your first album, or these songs might not, like these are the songs that don't make the cut. And I think she's kind of making a point now by including them on Taylor's version to say like, I wrote these songs, I really like them, I'm proud of them, so I'm going to include them in my version, which I think is really exciting. And of course, six new songs just makes all of Taylor Nation very happy. So I'm glad she did that for us.
Was there anything that you think she did that you weren't expecting? Like, obviously, with those songs, we knew they were coming out. But, Lindsay, too, you brought this up. Like, there were some subtle changes with some of the songs in terms of lyrics. So, is there anything you can think of that was done differently?
I was so thrown off guard that Keith Urban was in one of the songs.
Mm.
um that I am like a huge Keith Urban fan too. So when I saw that he was in one of the songs, that just like kind of like made it even more of a bonus. Um in terms of like the differences, Um, there's nothing I was really surprised about. I think that it was cool that she did a Forever and Always piano version, like Elena said earlier. It kind of like slows the song down a lot and like really like pulls at you and you get like a deeper meaning to the actual song instead of like the upbeat version. So I think that her throwing out like these different curveballs of things that we haven't heard before is just really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think there really aren't like that many differences that I could pick up on from like the original songs she had on the first album. I feel like there's just certain like words that she says in the songs, or like I don't even know how to explain it, like tunes that she does that sound just different than the original, but not in like a bad way. I just think it's like you can tell like once you hear it, like, oh, this is Taylor's version, not the original version. But I think that's kind of cool.
I saw on TikTok that there was this one girl who's been like comparing like both versions,
Mhm.
and one of the in You Belong With Me, there's a part where she in the original version, she like takes a huge gasp of air because she like can't catch that note, whatever is
Yeah.
next. Maybe I don't know, but there was a huge gasp. And then in the Taylor's version, there's no gasp, and I think that that's like a huge part where you can maybe tell that like her voice has grown so much and her music like vocal talents has improved. um but there's like subtle things here and there. There's a couple times where like you think that she says a word past tense, or at least I feel like she's saying it past tense because it was like in the past and that she's not feeling that anymore. Like there's a part where I can't remember the specific line, but it's like instead of her saying love, she loved.
Mm.
So, and I don't know if it's just me like going in my head and like trying to like really pull things out, but I feel like there might be more. She calls them Easter eggs. I feel like there might be more Easter eggs that we can pull out of these songs if we like slow them down, especially in like the new songs from the Vault.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a really cool point to make, Lindsay. What did you guys think of the fact that she put "If Today Was a Fairy Tale" on there? Because that wasn't a part of the original album, at least from what I saw. So, what did you think about that being on there?
I was
That's
very excited because that song was from, did she write that song for Valentine's Day, the movie, Lindsay?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember like being so excited that she was going to be in that movie in that song. Like I think that's when she came out with the song, and I just loved it so much. So I was really excited, especially getting her to re-record that song because I like wasn't expecting it since it wasn't on the first Fearless album. So yeah.
It's such a magical song. Like
Yeah, it
it's so
is.
good.
Yeah, I
It's
was curious
fairy
that too,
tale.
because like a lot of the album like is kind of set in that like fairy tale type love setting, but it's also not. Like there are some harder concepts too. So I thought it was
Hmm.
cool how she kind of tied that in, and then that like segued into the songs from the vault. So I think she did a good job like putting it into a certain order too, and like making the album really flow.
Hmm.
I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
like what I think one more difference that I actually like I keep thinking of different things. I think one more difference, I mean not difference, like similarity that she did was she asked Colby Calais to come back into the Breathe song. So she sang that with Colby Calais with her back vocals, and she asked Colby to do it again, and she was like completely honored that she was able to re-record a song from like 15 years later. So it's just so cool that so many different artists are like in on this and they totally support what she's doing, and they're able to come back and redo all of these songs for her, which is like
Mhm.
exactly what Taylor wanted.
And I was reading about this, the success of the original Fearless album, and like all the people that were on that team. Like obviously Colby was one of them. Like yeah, like probably they feel so honored that she wants to do this again. Like even her current production team, like they were probably like, let's do it. Like let's
Hmm.
recreate that, but let's do it the way she wants to.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think that she had different producers. So the ones that she used for Evermore and Folklore were Aaron Dessner and someone else. I'm not too sure.
Jack Antonoff.
Jack Antonoff. And so I think that it's cool that like in the new Volt songs that she was using them as well. So she didn't just like completely exclude or like go back to her original, which she did, but she was also able to include Aaron Dessner, who's now like her huge, like she's in love with Aaron. He's been a huge help with her.
I think it's really cool that like everyone was on board with it, like you said. And I feel like it's good that nobody kind of tried to persuade her from like not doing it or saying, oh, this is a bad idea, or maybe fans won't appreciate it if you're like trying to redo something that was already so successful, because they already know that like basically anything she does her fans like support, and she's going to be successful no matter what. So I'm glad that they were, you know, on board with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys, Elena. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining me and talking about Taylor Swift's Fearless Taylor's Version album. One last question, because brought it up in the beginning and I want to close it all out. Would you say that this is the same but better version of Fearless?
I would say so, yeah. I just think it's cool listening to it at now 25 years old. So, I mean, I'm definitely only going to listen to Taylor's version from now on. So I could say, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I am going to be listening to it and reminiscing on the first time that I ever heard the album, but now it's in a better way. And like Lindsay said, like now that we're older, we can make new connections with the lyrics and the albums, and like just kind of connect it to everything that's kind of happened from that time to now in our own lives, and also like Taylor in her own life. So yeah, it's definitely a different but better version.
Yep, and the impact is definitely going to come back around. Like, I've already seen articles saying that it's flying to number 1 in the UK. It's probably going to be number 1 in the US. Like, she's unstoppable at this point. She's gonna have another number 1. I feel it.
For
It'd be
sure.
interesting to see if that would an album like this be nominated for a Grammy again.
Yeah, I don't know actually.
I think we mentioned that before, because I think Jacqueline was saying that like there's no rule that says it can't be, so I feel like it should be able to, which is
Yeah.
How
really
cool would that be
awesome
if
for
she
her.
wins a Fearless Grammy again?
Yeah, exactly. She
Oh,
already
That would
won
be the
that for
best.
album of the year that year. That would be crazy, wouldn't it?
that'd be amazing. Amazing.
I think that would be a first too. I don't think anyone's ever done that.
I think
No?
one person re-recorded their music, I think for a similar reason, but back in like 2012. I have no idea who it is, but obviously he didn't win a Grammy. But I don't know how that works with the award shows and whatnot.
Yeah, there's definitely some red tape they probably have to cut through.
And for her, definitely, there's probably like some serious barriers that she's gonna have to break through. Knowing her luck.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you guys again. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having
Thanks
me.
for having
It's so
us.
fun.
Love being on the On Rotation podcast, so I can come back anytime you want me to.
Of course, of course.
Anytime we talk about Taylor.
Yeah.
First in line.